is him. It is him.
Thank you for fighting for this world, for believing. Fare you well, my friend, my inspiration.
Welcome everybody to MogTalk. This is episode 256. If you guys are unfamiliar with MogTalk, it's a show based around a Final Fantasy XIV community discussing everything from Savage Raiding to Chocobo Racing. And today we are continuing our journey through the Final Fantasy XIV story. A little bit different than what we had before, but bringing on Pyromancer and Anonymoose. I don't know why I broke those up the way I did, but we did it. Before we go too much further, would you guys mind introducing yourself? I'll start with you, Pyro.
Sure. Hi. Yeah, I'm Pyromancer, and I stream Final Fantasy XIV, as you guys may or may not know. This is this the third time that we're on here now?
So we had you on at the very beginning with Realm Reborn, then Heaven's Ward, then we did Shadowbringers, or not Shadowbringers, but Stormblood. So this is the fourth time.
Damn.
Holy shit.
Been 4?
Yeah.
One per expansion.
Yeah.
Damn.
All right.
I'm glad to be back. It's always fun.
It's been like a year, hasn't it?
It's been you mean like the whole time?
Yeah, the whole time since we started, yeah.
14 months. How about that?
How about that? All right. Well, guys, I'm sure you're familiar with Anonymoose, but Moose, tell everybody who you are.
I don't even know anymore.
Okay.
I'm going through it. Like, what do I say? Like, I think mostly at this point, I'm just known as someone who's been around forever and tries to be really friendly if you ask questions. Like, everything else has slowly been like either eaten away by real life or like bad atmosphere.
Real life? What is real life, man?
Terrible.
Still trying to figure out how I can get a cheat code for it. It's not.
Yeah. It's, infinite gold. What's the glittering gold command from Warcraft 3 or whatever it is, or Warcraft 2? I forget what it was.
Blizzard games are his thing. I only remember money
okay.
cheats from shit like The Sims.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyways,
yeah,
we should get back to the Final Fantasy XIV, I guess. But yeah, no, it's been a very long time, and we were gonna do this right before I had to go on a break, but unfortunately, some stuff came up, and we had to kind of stop that. Life is stabilized at least a decent bit for me now. And so it's a good time to come back. It's going to be a little bit different than our other shows because now we're going back after you're done with everything and reflecting on expansion instead of doing it directly after the expansion, which is good. I think has a lot of good things to it because we can dive into some details that we would have to kind of dance around before. But we did so good dancing around before, but we don't have to do it anymore. We're done.
No, we don't have to be so careful anymore. Yeah. Now we can talk about whatever, and if it accidentally comes into the conversation, it's fine.
It's fine. I do want to ask this real quick before we go too much into it, because we had that at the beginning with the clip and Graha and everything. That was like one of the biggest things that was actually spoiled from you in some way, right? If I remember right?
Yeah. It was something that was spoiled, I think. I think I can't remember where I saw it. I think it might have been like Scion
Mock Station.
Yeah, like Scion Grahatia or something.
Mm.
And I kind of figured it out from there. I think is what it was, but not that it was necessarily hard to figure out anyway. I mean, it was the Crystal Tower, and it was a cat boy, so
yeah. I mean,
we didn't know it was, but
we basically figured it out like when they did the first initial trailer for the expansion. I mean, it was there. But that being said, I mean, did it change how you felt about the story or anything? Like, did it really? No.
No, not that one. No, I mean, I felt like that was meant to be pretty obvious from the get go. So, honestly, like the thing that was most like disorienting, I guess, about it was having people try to convince me that it wasn't Grahatia for some reason, as though that was gonna like help the situation somehow. And so then when it turned out to be Grahatia, I'm like, guys, it's fucking Grahatia. Like, why did you? But anyway,
yeah.
But no, it didn't negatively impact the story for me.
Good. As I could tell looking at that, it seemed like you're definitely into the story at that point.
Yeah.
But okay, well, going back to Shadowbringers, how long has it been since you completed it? Was it December?
I don't know. I don't remember when I finished Shadowbringers. It's been a while. I mean, it probably was, probably around like December, probably like around my birthday, because when did Endwalker come out?
End of November, early December. It was early December. Oh my god, I can't remember because there was a delay,
15th, wasn't it? Something like that. A couple days after my birthday, I think it was.
I think that
anyway, it's been a while. Like I finished it at least 6 months ago, I think.
Okay, well, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. At least 6 months. We'll go with at least 6 months. Do you remember a lot about Shadowbringers, or did it just like leave your mind, or was it one of those things that just stuck with you?
I mean, there's definitely like scenes in my mind that will probably stick with me forever. But there's also probably a lot of little details that I probably won't remember terribly well. Okay. But I can remember like the most impactful and meaningful to me. I can remember all of those.
Okay. So we'll get into exactly those scenes in a little bit. But I just want to kind of gauge where you were with it, because we are kind of in that different situation with looking back from further away than previously.
Sure.
Do you remember, I guess, when you were in Stormblood and then you went into that transition going into Shadowbringers? How are you feeling kind of at the end of Stormblood? And did it, like, I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase this. Did it prepare you for what you were going into with Shadowbringers?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think towards the end of Stormblood, you can tell.
Shit.
That's a thing that can happen?
I clicked the wrong button. I'm so sorry. Continue.
All fixed. Yeah. I definitely think at the end of Stormblood, you can tell that they were leaning like more into the Garlean Empire thing and bringing Xenos into relevance and making him a little bit more than just a, snarling evil freak. Is he gone again? Did we lose him again?
No, I'm here.
He's still there. Okay, your camera's just not on for us. Okay, just making sure.
Oh, my camera's not on for you guys?
No.
Oh, hold on. You gotta see my face. Oh no, if you minimize it and reopen it, I think I'll show up. Yeah.
Oh, the same thing happened to Moose earlier.
Yeah. Okay, you scared me.
Thank you. No, my bad.
Okay. No.
So anyway, like towards the end of it, like it definitely had me thinking more, especially the Shinryu situation, like had me thinking more about like what primals are and where are they really sourced from, and how do they take form, and what are all the different ways that they can come to fruition, because it's not always the same. It can be very, very different emotions, very different people, very different representations, which has just become even more interesting with what we've learned in Endwalker. So yeah, I liked the wrap up for Stormblood, and at the end of it, I felt pretty satisfied at the storylines that had been closed, and was excited and a little bit scared of what we were going to run into, right? With the end at Stormblood, you finding out that Xenos isn't really gone, and you're like, oh fuck, dude, like when are we gonna be done with this guy, right?
Yeah. And we weren't done with him in that next expansion either.
No, and we weren't done then either. So so it was kind of cool. You definitely could tell that they were laying some of the foundations for the character arcs that happened throughout Shadowbringers and Endwalker. They had to start that at that point. Not that they didn't even earlier in Heaven's Ward, but I think Heaven's Ward is often seen as like, yeah, I think Preach had a similar take of like Heaven's Ward is like, yeah, this is the dragons, like this is the cool for this reason, but they started to set up a little bit deeper in Stormblood. So yeah, it was good. I liked it. The wrap up was good.
Cool. One of the big things I remember about going into Shadowbringers was just how like immediately kind of dark it felt like as soon as you went in there. Like I think you're at the first interaction you have is with a merchant that you talk to, and then you see references to him like dying immediately afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Like
yep. I was like, well, that's fucking rough. I just met that guy a couple minutes ago. Like that's really terrible. Yeah, so it definitely starts you off a little heavier, and I mean the quest lines that you lead into with Alphino and Alizé are especially Alizé are obviously very heavily leaning into that kind of, this is going to be a little bit more fucked up beyond what you might be used to seeing. Like we're now in a world where morality is a little bit different.
Yeah,
I feel like the intended like what I was intended to experience in that scene hit me just right, because there was so much on the first that seemed to be like a remix of Eorzea. Like there was so much familiarity there. So the first thing we see when we arrive on the first is a merchant that's dressed just like the merchants we met when we first came into our cities. And I'm like, oh, it's our new Brent or whatever. And this is going to be like my new guy who shows up for a couple times as I'm getting ready. And then he gets immediately killed. And I'm like, oh, this is a different story.
This is if the dice were rolled to just a little bit different here or there. Yeah, that's a really good point, is like the quickly establishing the contrast but heavy similarities to our world. And I think that really makes it hit home really quick, as far as like this place was very similar to Eorzea, to Hydaelyn, and we're about to see what an unhinged world looks like.
I mean, do you like that kind of storytelling where it kind of gets kind of dark? And yeah.
Oh fuck yeah. I mean, WoW always tried to tackle like the dark and heavy shit, but the cartoony kind of look to WoW always kind of like made it suffer in that regard, in my opinion. And just the medium of storytelling in that game, like we've discussed many times, is just so spread out that in order to get the real crude like descriptions of characters, you got to read the books. Whereas in this game, yeah, like they tackle it really directly in the game in a way that WoW just doesn't. Like WoW has gotten like dark, but not quite like Tesleen dark, like not Halric dark type shit. Like it's not quite like that. So I do like it, because I think the way that they use really sinister themes in ways that feel like, again, I think it always comes back to like not like losing that illusion, right? Like if you can maintain that illusion and keep it believable, that's like the most twisted shit. And I think that's why areas like Yulmore and like the, with the food there really fucked me up, because I was like, that's some shit that really could, like, people would do that type of crazy shit.
Yeah. Bringing up Tesleen, that was like the highlight of the expansion, with like moments of just holy fuck, what am I even playing right now?
Yeah, that was pretty gruesome, and that was apparently after they toned it down even as well, is what I'm told. So I kind of would have liked to see the original, but
they toned what down?
That cinematic, apparently, that Tesleen one. I heard anyway that that there was one even before the one that came into the game that was toned down. I don't know if that's the validity of that claim, but it's definitely a rumor that I've heard. But it's definitely the moment that you look back and like I feel like for me anyway, recognize like pretty much from here on out, it was pretty fucked up. Shit just kind of got fucked up from here on out.
Yeah. I mean, going into that first dungeon, right?
Yeah, or not Katana Rival, but yeah, Holminster Switch.
That was really rough. Like, and it just felt like that whole test lead situation just felt weird because it was just like, okay, well, we kill her, we just keep going. It's not like a big moment. It's just part of the dungeon.
And I think that, I don't know, to me that almost speaks to like the hopelessness of what happened to her. Is like, there's nothing we can do. Like, we're here now and she's in the way and this fucking sucks, but like we can't cure this person. So I mean, what, you can't stay there and mourn her. You know, we're here to fight an even bigger threat in this other Sin Eater. So
yeah,
you know, it really, I feel like it was one of those dark moments where one of your teammates, like, or one of your friends goes down, but all you can do is like look at their corpse and keep going.
Like a zombie movie almost, right?
Honestly, yeah, like they're gone. Like, we have to let them go now. And that was like, it was just rough. It was like, yeah, we roll up and now we have to slay you.
It was painful. It was painful.
It was pretty bad.
But it did make me kind of like fall in love with that expansion, like get really deeply invested in everything that was going on. And I don't know if I'm just sick and twisted, and we were all sick and twisted, and that kind of stuff kind of just piques our interest. But
it just grabs your attention, I think. You know, it's like, this is, I think when the direness of a situation is made that apparent to you that aggressively, that quickly, you know, that, I think that can kind of light a fire under your asses. Like, and I think that's really what they wanted to do, was really get the point across that this world's on the brink and normal people are this close to not being a thing anymore. And it made it feel very, very grim. So, and I think that was super well done.
Yeah. So, I mean, going past that, though, I mean, that was just part of the two different, I mean, you're experiencing it with every single Scion. You kind of went into like a little bit of a different part of that world. How'd you feel about that whole experience, going back and finding your friends and seeing, you know, their experiences? They were all just completely separate, which is kind of interesting. And they all got there at different points of the time, right? Because time was all weird. I guess I'd want to ask you about that concept too, because doing time stuff always gets kind of goofy. Do you feel like they did it properly within Shadowbringers?
So I'm not a big fan of time travel generally, but I would definitely say it's passable. I think that, like, initially what they immediately do by basically saying like, time does function differently, but with how things are working now, we're kind of in a moment of synchronicity. So we don't have to worry about it right now. And so they, you know, that's kind of I feel like that is a cop-out kind of thing to do. But at the same time, it works. And you don't have to like as far as I'm aware, you don't have to do like any crazy retconning or like come up with some crazy abstract concept for it to work, right? So it's kind of a passover, kind of a sweeping under the rug type of like, go ahead. But I think that, especially once you see how the time travel actually ties into Endwalker, that I would say yes. I think on its own, the Shadowbringers time travel is a little bit confusing. The whole concept of the 8th calamity and like how they averted it, but now they're here now, is like, I'm sort of kind of not understanding that, but during the moment. But you know, I think the culminations later on and how the wrap up quests can help to make that make more sense with the Ironworks and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think it was passable, I'd say.
Okay. If I remember right, Thancred was there the longest, wasn't he? Or was it someone else? I'm trying to remember who got sucked up.
I think it was either Thancred or Y'sh'tola.
Moose, do you remember?
Went down first at the dinner, right? Or not the dinner, the friggin' dinner table. Alliance meeting.
Yeah.
Who was that went down first?
Thancred went down at the Alliance meeting, didn't he?
Was it Thancred, and then was it like Urianger and Y'sh'tola that came in like a similar times or something like that? They came in like I don't remember exactly. I
remember who went down in what order.
Yeah. I can go back, but it's spaced. Yeah,
I think it was Thancred, then Y'sh'tola and Urianger, and the twins after that, if I remember right.
Yeah. Someone's saying he was 5 years, Y'sh'tola and Yuri were 3, so they came at the same time, similarly, and then the twins.
Yeah.
So To answer the question, I didn't mind that. I liked how they kind of staggered them back in. I think it's a bad idea to like, oh my god, everyone's here all of a sudden. Like, better get to work. You know, there's a lot of missed opportunity there as far as storytelling goes if you don't take advantage of being able to introduce them back slowly, in my opinion. And so I did like that, and it felt like, I think really what it felt like, you were getting something back. You know, like I think I can speak for a lot of people where I say, like, by the time you're in Shadowbringers, you have an attachment to a lot of these characters, and you feel like you're really getting your comrades back. And especially in a world in the state of the first, like, that's a really meaningful thing. I mean, it's the most meaningful thing, as we later on kind of find out. But yeah, I loved that, and kind of getting the individual stories that helped to expand not only what has this character been doing and opening up that storyline, but the way that how they've been interacting with the world, and like what's been going on in Yulmore, and how has that been affecting how Alphino has grown. Like the way that they tied it all together in that way was really sweet. And it didn't feel segmented, it didn't feel separated, it felt very cohesive. So yeah, I was very much a fan of that style of storytelling when we first arrived.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. Oh, go ahead, Moose.
I feel like a lot of this was just like very brilliant game design. Because when we first left off, or when we last left off with the first, I shouldn't use the word first twice in that sentence. When we last left off with the first, like they didn't know there was going to be more story. They didn't really have long-term plans for the Warriors of Darkness. So when we wrapped up with them in 3.4, that was kind of supposed to feel like it was it at first. Like they were going to take Minfilia, they were going to go home, they were going to do something. So if we jumped right into the story, then there wouldn't be a lot for us to do.
Right.
So like that
been
weird,
too close in time.
Right. That oscillating time situation bought them 100 years of history to do world building for, so that by the time we show up, there's a whole different status quo. There's stuff to explore. We don't know anything. And then the stuff that we did in 3.4 is now like a legend. But at the same time, if time was always that discrepant or moving that fast, then it would kind of undermine everything we know and everything we want to do. So they had to create that like oscillation that sometimes they just go faster, slower relative to each other for a bit.
And that it's not always a constant difference in it.
Yeah. And now we're just coincidentally lining up just right, so that we can have our friends be there for a couple years without fucking with the time bubble. So yeah, it was great that they were able to give like our friends history and give the world history, but not screw too much with how we were already experiencing the story. Like that whole thing about the time wobbliness felt very like just brilliant game design. The time travel itself made me so salty for a few months, because like Alexander was probably one of the only time travel stories I've thought was done well. They created this really cool bootstrap paradox. They made it so that like the history that was set up was made possible by the events that we were doing. Like they showed cool, like dude. They showed time as this like 4-dimensional block that's just, it's all happening at once, and you have to live in the part that you're born in. Like there's a fate to it almost. And then in comes Shadowbringers, and it's just like, nah, we split it, so now there's multiple dimensions, and there's, you can change the future and the past. And I'm like, no, you can't. What? And I just got around to accepting maybe like the great black rift between dimensions is our universe's chaos. It's the infinite multiverse unmanifest. It's all potential time, all potential space. And then we reached into the rift and we created a new graft of history so that we could move on. Okay, fine, I accept it. And then Endwalker walks in like, bam, new bootstrap paradox. It was like this all and the funny thing was, like, I spent all of Shadowbringers trying to point out that inconsistency and trying to resolve it, and everyone's like, ignore it. It's fine. I'm like, it's not fine. I hate it. And then Endwalker comes out, and it's like bootstrap paradox. I'm like, great. I feel great. Everything's resolved now. That was amazing. Thank you. And everyone else is like, I hate it.
I really love the time loop like stuff that they did in Endwalker. How I think it was really cool, like how, for me anyway, I kind of slowly came to the realization of like that I really was there, and this wasn't me intervening on something that had happened, but we really went like when they utilized time travel in that way, I don't know, it just made you feel like you were a part of something that you didn't get to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's pretty sweet. But I do agree with the Alexander thing. Like Alexander's initial storyline, I remember that was a really long, like 15-hour stream for me. And I remember people asking me that, like, what do you think of the time travel? What do you think of the time travel? Because I wasn't a big fan of it from WoW. And it was pretty sweet. And I don't know. I also kind of fanboy a little bit when I see things like that I think just generally were cool come back and like see them get combined with other shit like Omega and Alexander. Like that's one of the coolest things ever. So so I'm obviously just fanboying a little bit about that, but yeah, definitely some of the better time travel instances of games that I've played.
Okay. I mean, I forgot about Minfilia, to be honest with you, but she was technically the first one there, not Thancred, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know. What about our boy Graha? When did he get there again?
Like, I mean, 90 something years before the
long time ago.
Okay.
So, but he left after us.
Mm-hmm.
True.
So, what batch you want to put him in is, for a while I kept joking that was the way you resolve the time paradox. After the adventure, you got to shove Catboy back in the tower so that he can wake up and take his false memories back to the past and keep the loop going.
Oh, that was so crazy. Go ahead.
Yeah, didn't they do that? They gave us like that scare of like, nah, he's gonna have to go away type shit. We were gonna lose him at the end of it.
I fully expected it that we were gonna have to do something with that,
like
and then
really
like
gave us that vibe.
The end of the story was like Graha Tia himself was like, "Huh, I didn't get deleted. That's weird." Anyway, like,
oh right, yeah, wasn't Alice getting like mad at him because he would like kept like volunteering his life up like all the time because he he was basically trying to fulfill this prophecy that he thought existed.
Yeah. No, Graha, man, I actually didn't know there was so much like a love for that character, but there is a ton of love for Graha. Even I think before all this stuff, people were really interested in the Crystal Tower stuff. But for me, I almost forgot about him. I'm going to be honest with you. And this is me, horrible Frosty that doesn't pay attention enough to the story. But when I saw him in the trailer, and people were like, "Oh, that's Graha," I'm like, "Who?" And like, I felt like such an asshole about it. But I mean, he is like one of the most popular characters in the game now, for sure. And
relatable as people are like, Hilda's number one. I'm like, who's Hilda? I'm like, who the fuck is that? I'm like, oh, the half Hellas and half here chick. That's yeah. Sorry, I forgot all about her because yeah. Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's kind of another.
Especially if you're getting into it and you're kind of bursting through the story, and that's why, because going into Endwalker, it was Shadowbringer, right? Shadowbringers, they're like, please do Crystal Tower, and then they said that for Endwalker again too. I think too. Yeah, they said it for both, right? Can't remember.
Probably you should do it anyway.
Yeah,
super big lore.
Yeah, it's like huge.
I'm trying to remember what they said we should play for Endwalker because I remember him just being like, "What should you play? The game."
Yeah,
like all of it.
Yeah,
I remember seeing like a post about that, like what you should do everything. You never know what might be relevant again.
Yeah, no. If we get back together for an Endwalker episode, I'll go into like more ranting about the time travel. But like I was salty about it in Shadowbringers, and I'm really glad that they found a way to like make it seem like Fana pulled all these different threads from different possible histories and wove them all together into this one thing that's happened the whole time. I'm kind of curious if that's where Pandemonium is going. That like we already did it, so we just have to do it. Like,
I mean, it makes sense. But
the weaving together of timelines into one timeline, I've got so many comments on that for the Endwalker episode. If we do one.
We're gonna have to do one because if we don't get to talk
done.
about Vana and Pandemonium and Agalaya, I'm gonna lose my shit. It's like the best lore in the whole game, dude. I'm so excited to get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back, Minfilia, she was the first one to venture into it, and she had this whole huge effect on the first. She destroyed it basically, right? Or am I imagining that? Like, did she cause the wave of light? What caused the wave of light again? Or she was
wave of light. The actual flood itself was blamed on Eden, the first Sin Eater, for most of the story. Okay. She is created the current situation where you have that like one open area. So even though she quote unquote saved it, she was also setting up the status quo that was then exploited by the Ascians again in this one.
Okay. I had it reversed. Sorry.
So she was like she was remembered as a savior, but also the light was remembered as horrible. So it's like this very interesting dynamic between them all. Ardbert took most of the blame.
Wasn't it that Ardbert and them had developed an incredibly dense like blade of light? When they struck the Ascian with it, it like created an explosion from within the Ascian that started the flood of light? Is that actually where it came from?
It was like how he like turned him into Eden somehow. Like the whole thing is very I think
kind of ambiguous.
Whatever. Yeah, it's kind of what it needs to be, because Eden was not supposed to be the raid. It was supposed to be the final boss. So there were some things that were shifted around in order to make it all work, and some of the reveals of the information came out at different times than I think they were originally intended. So I really just took Mitron became Eden when you hit him with the blade of light because reasons. I just kind of took that at face value.
Same.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that Eden was supposed to be the last boss. I mean, they changed it was way better than I'm sure it would have been if it was Eden. I don't know, maybe not, but
the Eden raid's fucking amazing. That's such a good raid, dude.
I could have gotten a couple of those reveals like a little earlier because it was already 3.4 when we were already moving on to like pre-Endwalker stuff by the time they were finally revealing what Eden actually was, and I think I could have done with some of that information earlier, but it was worth it to trade that for the story we got.
And we were talking about this a little bit before we came on, but the thing that was kind of weird and hard to, I don't know, for me to go through is understanding what Minfilia was kind of doing to just like random young girls, it seemed like making them into oracles of light, and like they were kind of like sacrifices, and then she's just said, hey, I'm done with this. This is too weird for me. But it took her about 100 years to do that, right?
Well, I think a lot of it was kind of like done by necessity, as far as like the puzzle pieces aren't really in place yet for us to do anything else. And it was kind of like this unfortunate sacrifice, that kind of had to occur in order to keep shit in check. But I think correct me if I'm wrong, Moose, but wasn't it kind of like the same kind of like recycling of the essence of Minfilia that was just being kind of passed through different mortal girls? Is that what was occurring? I don't exactly remember.
I would have the exact explanation again, and I can even do it while we're talking, probably. But she compared it a little bit to like the way the Ascians were doing things, but with better intentions. I would have to look up the exact words that she used again. When you were asking how long it's been since we beat the story, I looked up my achievement just for shiggles.
Okay.
And I beat the story on July 3rd, 2019, so it's been a minute.
Yeah, that's fair. 3 years. 3 years.
Oh, right. That's why they were serving as the oracles. Duh.
There were like mortals that were being born with the same kind of rebirth cycle kind of thing, and she was like kind of sidejacking the Ascian mechanics, hopping around.
Yeah, I forgot that she actually would take control of them at times, because I guess that's how she stopped the flood. Like, literally through the Oracle of Light, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they tried to make sense of it because, like, Hydaelyn later talked about how she had to ferry the soul between dimensions. So even though Minfilia died on the first and was reborn on she could be reborn on the first and then do the Oracle thing again. And I remember there being like a very there was like a technicality in the way she talked about it. I'm gonna look it up while we're talking.
Sure, yeah, no. The only reason I bring it up is because it's just one of those situations where you realize, you're the good guys and everything, but the good guys are doing something that's very questionable. But then you're like, well, I guess it should still happen. You have to sit with that feeling of doing questionable things for the greater good. That's what it felt like to me, at least.
I think Shadowbringers definitely had that kind of like tone to it in general, as far as like with Emmett, with some people in Yulmore, as far as like surviving, even if some of them were ignorant, like as far as Ranjit, kind of knowing, that this whole thing's fucked up, but kind of getting lost in it. And the same with Emmett, like I started with, like him, having just this little tiny splinter of hope inside of him, and kind of recognizing the tragedy that's occurred, but still kind of being blinded in it.
While Moose is looking that up, we can also take into the fact that Emmett came in as just a side, who is this character, became literally like the poster boy of the entire expansion or entire game. It feels like like the character of Final Fantasy XIV that is absolutely beloved by everyone.
Yeah, I think honestly, like, it depends on who you ask. I've definitely met some people that aren't big Emmett fans, but I definitely, I definitely could see why people are. I mean, Emmett just takes a different angle than the other Ascians in the way that he interacts with you. And I mean, all the way through the expansion, he had me sitting there like, I still don't know if I fucking trust you, even though 99% of what he said was true. Even when someone, it's just, I don't know. For me, I guess it kind of highlighted the aspect of like, even if someone is willing to play it straight with you, you still might not ever develop that sense of trust with them just because of what they are. And
I got your line, but I also have comments on this. What do I do first?
Do the line, then we can do the comments. Yeah, whatever you want to do. Okay. Whatever you do.
Yeah, no, I wanted to look it up because I didn't want to put words in Minfilia's mouth here. So the explanation she gave was, I'm no different from an Ascian. This child is but a vessel, one of many I have used that I might spread word of her enduring blessing and preserve the flame of hope. In my name, each has died, never having lived her own life.
Gotcha. So they're pretty much, they pretty much become a vessel and tool for her at that point. They have no free will or anything like that. So I guess that's the whole thing with Ryne, dude. She's one of my favorite fucking characters ever, dude. That's one of my favorite storylines ever. And honestly, I think I started to get like out of Ryne what I kind of wanted, like from Minfilia, I guess, to an extent.
Oh, you think that's
my conspiracy? I have a conspiracy theory that's the whole point.
Honestly, like it kind of almost sort of feels like that, like to get that vulnerable emotional side of Minfilia that you just never really got.
Nobody appreciates a good manager, and like in the whole 2.0 era, she was this like quiet leadership role. So all the fans really had to experience of her was pray return to the waking sands, pray return to the waking sands. Like she was just this person who annoyed you to do errands you didn't want to do because the developers wanted to waste your time and link pearls were insecure. So like everybody hated her. Not everybody, but a lot of people hated her because like that's what she did. Nothing except annoy you to come to waking sands. And so like she was seen as this like unambiguously good supportive person, but it was also just pray return to the waking sands meme. And I think
pretty flat.
I think when she vanished, they were trying to open up that role a bit, like at the end of 2.5, that they were trying to open up that role a bit. And then she kind of came back as the word of the mother, but they weren't going to really use that. And there was some really good drama there. And then she left and it was over and we weren't going to use that anymore. And that I feel like they were, okay, how can we bring her back as like someone new and cooler and get people to like Minfilia again? And like that's what Ryne feels like to me, is the exploration of Minfilia whose life was not stolen from her as a child. And that's how much 1.0 lore have you really dug deep into, Pyro?
I learned a little bit more about Minfilia after the fact, actually. Like, not a terrible amount, but after it was kind of like explained to me how much of like her youth she didn't really have at all, it kind of hit a little bit more home as far as like why she seems so duty bound and like stoic all the time, and because that's literally how she had to be.
1.0 opened with like the whole first 15 levels were you falling in and out of these echoes from 15 years ago. So you actually meet Minfilia as a child when she first comes to Eorzea. She comes to Ul'dah from Ala Mhigo with her dad. And the first thing that happens in those echoes is like there are these people who are trying to stage this kind of like public spectacle kind of thing. And it goes awry and Minfilia's dad gets killed.
Right.
And
the whole Gubu incident.
Yeah, Flamine was part of this whole conspiracy to like create this incident that went awry. So she adopted Minfilia out of guilt. And Thancred never really let it go because while he was supposed to be watching for threats and figuring out what was going on, he was just like flirting with women.
Typical Thancred behavior.
Yeah. He's like walking away like, where in this marvel of a city might you two ladies be staying, as like this whole thing is unfolding in the background. So he always kind of blamed himself a little bit for her dad's death. So when Flamine adopted her, he kept looking in on her. So like, yeah, her whole childhood was kind of robbed of her. And he told himself that he was always going to protect her because he failed to that day. So that's why he went into that like huge depression spiral after the word of the mother shattered and she died. And like, I remember having to explain to a lot of people because they couldn't understand why he punched a Manolane. And they're like, dude, you punched a child. But like the child was like lecturing him about how he didn't know what it was like to lose anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not the time. So that's where that came from. But yeah, I feel like this whole dynamic with Ryne is like, let's bring Minfilia back and have Thancred kind of find his redemption through her and get this cool Minfilia that we lost. And now I'm just rambling way too much, but like that's kind of I took away the same exact thing that was we like Minfilia now. We can all agree to like Minfilia now.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I don't think that's that much of a conspiracy theory, to be honest. I think that there definitely was some missing elements with Minfilia and as a product of her story. And I really do like how they kind of took that grief from Thancred and used that to play on how Ryne would kind of overcome that type of obstacle in the way that Minfilia kind of maybe never could, or Thancred never got the opportunity, really is really more what it is. So I thought Ryne, like, just during the walk at the end, Ryne made me cry the hardest, dude. Like as soon as her voice line came in,
Yeah. I mean, they definitely did redeem that kind of character with another character, which is pretty interesting. Everybody loves Ryne, and everybody loves the relationship between her and Gaia, right? It's like just a huge thing between the two of them. The Oracle of Darkness, Oracle of Lightness. You have this whole big thing going on. You're thinking, oh, they're going to battle each other, and it's going to be crazy, but they just want to go get biscuits. And that's what the
just be friends and share jewelry and do like teenage girl things, you know?
Yeah.
And honestly, like it's kind of tragic too when you start thinking about Gaia and who she really was. Like there's like an extra layer of tragedy there because it's like you have sorry, I'm being very distracted by who's in front of me in the game right now. Like I said, I have the game open.
No, it's okay.
Sorry. Fuck. Oh, I think it's tragic because you have kind of this level of like the whole like wiping away the memories of Gaia, who's kind of like her own person, and then Logriff on the other side of that, like kind of suffering a similar fate as far as like being cast away and torn away from her own memories and her past. And that's a really tough thing, I think, morally for me, was like, who deserves to have their mind and memory? Like what is the best outcome here? And to be honest, like we still don't even necessarily have like a full resolution to that whole Gaia situation. So I mean that is an Ascian. So I'm interested if that'll ever become a thing again. As far as the story dynamics throughout the whole of the Eden raid, like even like back to the main story, like how they used Ranjit with Thancred was fucking amazing. Like I even came to appreciate Ranjit even though I hated him initially, and it was kind of like a weird thing of like this guy's just as broken as everyone around here is. So yeah. Anyway.
So that reminds me of and we're on the kind of Thancred storyline here because it's a huge backbone of Shadowbringers. It's just like that part of the story, but like. I don't know do you remember you being Thancred and fighting Ranjit?
Yes, I do recall that. I was like, well, I'm fucking dead. I'm like, well, Thancred's fucking dying.
Yeah. I remember so many people complaining about that being such a long and drawn out fight and it was just tedious. I loved it. I
think so.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
I loved it, but I also thought he was gonna die. Like I thought this was like Thancred's last badass big hurrah.
Same. I thought we're gonna die fighting Ranjit. This is gonna be awesome.
we're gonna make Thancred look like $1 million when he goes down. And I thought that was the whole justification. So I have no qualms with how hard the battle was. I thought it was great. The part that I thought was weird was how there was like the battle ends. Thancred lays on the ground. He gives this beautiful death monologue. We cut to another scene, and then they go through that. And then at the end of the scene, Thancred walks in like, oh, "Hey guys, what are we doing?" And I just did not expect him to still be alive.
Yeah. I kind of freaked out. Like they bait you several times in Shadowbringers. I feel like with characters dying. And it's like, did they actually die? I don't know anymore. My heart can't take it. Like, well, you were supposed to be dead. Now she's in the live stream again. Like, fuck, what's gonna happen this time? She came back, but she has her clothes this time. Nice job, Emmett.
Yeah,
you know, it was. There was a roller coaster of me for that, and Thancred was definitely on the list of like characters that when I thought it was it, like I was crying.
I mean, they did such a good job because in Final Fantasy XIV, it's weird. We've had this roller coaster of like, can these popular characters be killed, right? After A Realm Reborn, we're like, okay, well, nothing bad really happened. And then at the end of Heavensward, I think it was at the end of Heavensward, we actually start seeing some deaths. And so we start to believe, I can't remember if it was at the end of a Heavensward or at the end of Stormblood. I'm trying to remember. I think it was the end of Heavensward.
You mean like Scions dying and stuff?
Yeah.
I think my memory's gonna fail me. Never mind. I'm just gonna be quiet.
That's fair. But we start seeing those deaths happen, and so you know it can be done. Square Enix can be like, I am going to kill a character, and we're going to move forward. So we always get this whole, I don't know, fear that this stuff might actually happen.
And that's a fear that's made very real, like at the end of Endwalker. When you start seeing all your friends literally disappear into the dynamis around you, you're like, what the fuck, dude? Yeah. It's a fear that they definitely, play on throughout all of Shadowbringers and I think a lot of Endwalker. But I think that's good though. I think it makes you like a lot more attached to the characters. Like when you have characters that you genuinely don't want to see go, like it's a pretty cool thing. I feel like there's a lot of games where you see characters die and you're like, well, there he goes. He had his 5 lines of dialogue or whatever, and his little storyline, and they just do it in such a meaningful way that like when you do finally lose characters, usually it's pretty impactful, and it's never cheap. It's almost never cheap. So.
Yeah. I mean that's kind of like a big part of the whole Endwalker discussion. It's just like everyone was talking about who's going to die, right? Going into it, what people are going to die in this, and there is so many.
Everybody.
There's so many positions or spots in that story where you're like, okay, well, someone is dead, everyone's dead. I don't know. We'll save that one. We'll save that one for the next show. But yeah, that they really
start
like
getting other characters who are like, I want to die, and I want to take all of you with me. Like, then you're like, okay, now shit's really getting weird. And then you have a guy that's like, I've never felt so alive except when I almost felt dead. Now now I have to find that feeling again. And he only just finally fucking died. So
yeah. Well, I mean, that being said, going on Thancred's story, I mean, I like that whole battle because it felt like a struggle, and people who have played Crisis Core, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but they had a battle similar to that, which was like one of my favorite battles in interactions within a game. I mean, it wasn't the best, most perfect game in the world, but that one scene was very familiar towards that scene. And I did think Thancred was dead. I was like, okay, they did this right. You know, we went through this whole struggle. We felt the struggle, and then we lost. That feels appropriate for what's going on in this expansion right now. This is
monologue. Yeah, monologue. You know, he's laying there on the ground, giving like last words to Minfilia, and it's like, oh my god, like they're actually gonna kill him. They're actually gonna fucking kill him here.
Yeah,
It definitely. I mean, the same thing. I guess, honestly, after the first time with Y'shtola, after she went into the live stream, when she fell into the pit, I was like, she's not dead. I was like, she ain't dead. I saw her in that Endwalker cutscene. She ain't dead.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, there's characters that I think like they faked you out, but then like you kind of could build the confidence of like, now they're not going to kill this character. They've had too many opportunities. Now it's like, if they didn't kill them the second time they fake killed them, they're probably not going to kill them.
Yeah.
So.
That being said, we are getting close to the top of the hour. I probably should do that one scheduled, or at least this scheduled little ad break here for a few minutes, guys. We'll go to a quick break. Should be only 3-4 minutes, and we'll come right back. Hang tight, guys. Sorry if it ran early for a couple of you guys, but we're doing a cut over right now. Do it real awkward. Give me 1 second to be super awkward about it. Here we go. All right, and we're back. Thanks everybody for bearing with us through that. It's also good during these shows to have these little breaks. I'm starting to like get used to doing it a little bit, so you can like take a second to like go to the bathroom, get a drink, do something. I don't know if
chat.
I think I did an episode once that was 6 hours long.
Ooh.
And I didn't take a bathroom break. It was rough, and that was just a straight show. I mean, I've done segments of shows. Like, I think the longest I did was like a 13 hour one, but it was 1 hour each time to have a show, stop for 10-15 minutes and just go back and forth. So it's been nice. It's been nice in that regard, at least.
It's good. You got to take breaks just like you should at work, you know.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Even if you don't consider it work, like you should, got to do it.
But it's so like you get so intense in these talks. You're like, oh man, I just want to keep going. But I did want to bring something up because it's on top of mind. One of the episodes we had, one of the things that has been seared into my memory, and we don't have to go super into it because it deals a lot with Endwalker, but you're kind of at a point to where you could probably talk on it. Is
the Orden thing?
Fandaniel, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a spot where you said something about him being dead and done, and you're glad of it. I can't remember exactly, Moose. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because when we were trying not to spoil things for you, I was usually like a little mischievous about it. Like, I'd plant a seed here or make a joke there, and chat would get it. And then like I wanted to see what you would think about it the next episode.
Okay.
And I think this one was you were glad Asahi was dead.
Oh yeah,
and
the most punchable face.
I think I said something along the lines of, "Yeah, aren't you glad you never have to see that guy again?" I think that's what he said.
Dude. And then when they reintroduced him, I didn't say it to my stream, but I had this really weird underlying feeling. I was like, that could be Asahi in there, dude. Yeah, I don't fucking like that. And then when I heard his voice, I was like, it's fucking him! And then when they introduced him as Fandaniel, I was like, oh shit! Like, I can't believe he's back. I want to punch him so fucking bad. Like,
it was such a great shortcut to get exactly the reaction to Fandaniel they wanted, to just recycle that old character we all hated for a hot minute.
it seems so like simple, I feel like in hindsight, but so like fucking smart at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
Like I guess that's why these people do what they do. But yeah, I loved what they did with him. And Fan Daniel actually ended up being like one of my favorite Asians, and then Hermes, one of my favorite ancients. So
Yeah.
and they somehow managed that. So
Yeah, how they put all this stuff together is like insane to me sometimes. It was one of those things that reminded me that we don't have to do that anymore. But I do kind of miss being able to have those little moments like Moose saying that one little line. Just like somehow holding it together and it all worked out.
I love doing it to my brother because I very much delight and relish in the giving you little nuggets and you have no idea that I'm doing it type thing. I love doing that. So I definitely have a sincere appreciation for where Moose is coming from when he does that. It's so much fun. And I loved passing that on to my brother, you know, talking about you know, when he arrived in Ultima Thule, I made a comment to him about how, you know, something about like what would you do? Like what would you be willing to sacrifice just to breathe? You know, like, and he's like, "What do you mean by that?" I'm like, "Nothing, like, nothing." And so I love it, dude. I love it. That's cool that you guys like remember that and like can recall back to that. I wouldn't have even, yeah.
I mean, I'm
awesome.
gonna, you know, just reflecting on our previous episodes. That was definitely one of the most stressful things about bringing you on. It's just, I wanted to talk about it. You were excited to talk about the story. It was so much that I just wanted to capture with that. But we also had to be so conscious of not ruining things for you and making it like. And I have to applaud Moose for just like I'm kind of stupid, right? So when it comes to the story, there's a lot of missing. You know, I'm not gonna like be able to ruin stuff as much, and then I can be very careful. And Moose, I don't know how he was able to like piece his words in the right way to not throw you in a direction that would ruin the story for you in the future. So
yeah,
small sample size. You kept me on long enough, I would have screwed that one up.
You give anyone long enough, they'll probably But it was fun to listen to as well because you could hear. I mean, you slow down when you speak. You know, like you could hear you thinking about exactly how you wanted to say it before you said it, and it was
processing, buffering.
Yeah, you know, like how do I you know, I do the same thing with him, and it's super fun.
Yeah. All right.
But if I could say, no, I mean, good job on not spoiling anything.
I'm glad we didn't. I was really worried that there was going to be like one time that I just like, oh yeah, because the underpinning of this turned out to be, and you're going to be like,
what? He's who?
So matter of fact.
In chat, you know, chat did great as well. I mean, it's not like I had all the chats closed during it every time, and the mods did amazing too. Like as an aside, like my mods did an incredible job not letting me get spoiled. Like I got all the way to the end of Endwalker and didn't know that Aglaia was going to be a thing. Had no idea, and they were like, by the way, the alliance raid is the 12, and I'm like, what? Like what? You know, that was probably. I love pantheons of gods. Like it's one of my favorite things. And so for us to, I mean, one of my biggest requests going in was like, we got to get the 12. And so for us to eventually get them was really cool. But the fact that they were able to keep that hidden the whole time was pretty amazing. And I have to say, like, some people will ask in my stream if there's like other games where people are kind of like this. And I would say probably like, not really. Like, from what I've seen anyway, and that's not that much, I've never seen a community that treats spoilers like they do here, and protecting people from it, and not, you don't have to be a mod or anything, like just people just do it.
That reminds me of like when I would play games. Like I remember I played Undertale on stream for the first time. And there's so many people who are just so passionate about that game, and they'll just start talking and saying, oh, I can't wait till you get to this character and this and that. It was like this whole experience of like the fandom going in the other direction and oversharing, because they're all just so obsessed with seeing you get to that point.
Yeah.
And they don't actually think, hey, what I'm saying is actually going to be, might ruin the experience in some way. But the Final Fantasy 14 people are like, yeah, no, silence and smiles is all we can
Smiles, dude. That's the best possible thing. Because
Yeah.
you're totally right. Like sometimes, sometimes the excitement and the enthusiasm for it will lead you to ruin it for someone, and then it kind of sucks for you as a viewer, because then it kind of ruins that experience too. And you're like, well, shit. And then you feel bad. No one, don't feel bad, obviously, but don't spoil either. But obviously, this community is just exceptional when it comes to that. And I mean, I think like streamers and other content creators like you guys have an influence on that too, right? Like when they see people that they admire, or that they really love watching or listening to, like people listen to that. And so I think that it's really cool that a lot of the community creators also lead by example in that regard. And I that's something that I want to be very careful of going forward as well, is like, how do I put out my content in a way that's not going to be just like huge spoilers, right? Because what I do is try to figure out the spoilers. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. Go ahead.
I'm curious if it filters down like right from the top, because like first off, this is an MMO. We're not all playing it in a vacuum, so there's a lot more social interaction to begin with. You have a lot more touchstones for what people consider a spoiler. Like usually there's that debate of what even is really a spoiler for this particular medium. But like in an MMO, we have an opportunity to share our beliefs about what those are. But like from the very top, we've had Yoshida all along saying that like it's very important to him that people respect other players and what they know and what they don't know, and to kind of respect the intended experience. And I know that a lot of the content creators are following all those interviews and listening to what he says and resonating with what he says as both gamers and content creators. So I feel like it's just like this trickle down effect of his values through the fan base.
That's super cool. I think that we've seen. I mean, you could probably speak to his values trickling down on multiple levels. I think that's really awesome. But I think that definitely makes sense, especially from like a content creator perspective of like when there's hundreds of people, or in some cases thousands of people watching, and it's like, I don't want anyone here to ruin my experience either. The fact that is carried straight down is literally amazing for people that stream the game, because I mean, that's why you get reactions out of people like me, because you're able to have such an organic response to it. And that's like, I mean, as a content creator, like I could not be more thankful for that, because the total experience of the game is predicated by how much you know. And and if you know too much, it definitely it would suck.
The dev team has put so much work into this game that that's always the first thing I think of, is like my experience, being able to experience it as they intended. That was such a powerful experience for me. I don't want it to be different for anyone else. I want everyone to have that moment that they work so hard for, because I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. That's super cool, dude. That's so awesome.
Just saw something in chat that made me laugh from Arrested Reborn. We're all tempered by the producer. I mean, it kind of is true in a sense. Like, people have been playing for Final Fantasy 14, Yoshida is like a god. I mean, in my experience with him and everyone else, I mean, he's still human. He's not like perfect, but he is really good. He does a pretty good job overall. And the times I've got to meet him, like in non-media recorded, just casual conversation, situations, he's been great every time. I mean, I know some of that's just like, hey, I'm talking to a content creator and this is how I need to be. But I have been able to see him a little bit behind stage and see everything, and he's a great guy. So awesome. I there's a reason why it's not like being tempered by like some evil primal. It's like being tempered by someone you should be tempered by, I guess, if you guys are worried about
being
that.
Tempered by Vana.
Yeah, like by Vana.
So
I have the same reaction to being tempered by Yoshi P as Emet-Selch has being tempered by Zodiark. Just, well, if you gotta be tempered, might as well be by the one true god.
If I gotta do it, well, rather have this on the resume.
Well, I mean, going to the Shadowbringers and going a little bit more into some of those storylines too. I mean, we talked a little bit about some of the twins' experience, not deep into it, but we also talked about Thancred. What we haven't really touched too much on was Y'shtola and ysh'tola, which they had kind of two different little situations. Thancred got attached to Fairyland, right?
Ryonjay, yeah, he had to spend a little time there. It sounded like.
My experience with that place was like, man, this is bright, cuddly, but didn't you find out that these guys just like turn people into bushes, right? And they just basically kill them?
Bright and scary.
Yeah, as soon as we got there, I was like, we're fucked. Like, I saw the mist around us, and I was like, we are in their territory now, and
yeah,
at their mercy. Because I mean, it's Fae. Fae are fucking scary.
Yeah.
So I was very much immersed in that as soon as we landed.
Yeah, it was pretty intense going through that, and I remember I don't know what I was expecting or thinking. This was, I think, one of the zones that we were allowed to go to at the media tour when they did it. And I think I remember just kind of sitting and hanging out there, flying around and looking at the castle, looking at like the little island that turned out to be Bismarck later, right? The giant whale. And I kept trying to go there in the media of it. I was like, can I get over to that little area? And it wouldn't let you, but it definitely stood out.
The biggest Fae that we saw the whole damn time we were there.
Yeah. But I mean, how do you feel about that whole interaction, that storyline? Because I mean, it was a little separate storyline. They had their was it King? Is that right? It was. You mean what's the name of the main
Titania?
Fae guy? Yeah, Titania. Yeah.
Titania in this
Titania.
case.
Yeah. And that was the whole thing. Did you it felt different, right? Shadowbringers, you get in there, it's like dark, it's kind of gloomy, and then you go into this kind of bright, different kind of experience, but it still fit the theme in a way.
Like whimsical, but still creepy as fuck, you know? Which is like perfect for Fae. Like that's I mean, that's bread and butter there. But I definitely think for like Urianjay's storyline, it was like a different pace too. You know, it was like maybe I just can't quite remember as much from his storyline. Because he was Ilmeg, right? He's the one that spent all the time with the Fae.
He was studying. I'm trying to remember. Moose, do you want to enlighten us and like get the memory jogged again? Do you have that story?
I mean, my two whole takeaways from the Urianjay section were like the brilliant retconning of the elemental wheel and the fact that the fairies thought they were tricking him into being polite to them for making him horrible food, but he had tricked them into making him tea and biscuits. Like that was probably the two best parts of the zone. But yeah, no, like I saw that sign, or I saw that whole zone as like almost like a Jim Henson movie that is for children but scares the shit out of children. Like that's how I saw it. They did a really good vibe on making it like childlike but not.
Yeah, and there's something that I think just to a certain degree can be like inherently creepy about things that are childlike too. You know, just with how we've portrayed them before.
Chucky.
Right. So. I forgot that the ethereal wheel thing does happen there. Yeah, that's probably like the biggest like split the cosmology wide open type of thing ever. And it took me a little bit to grasp exactly how that worked, but once I understood it, that was like, this is kind of what I wanted from WoW the whole time.
So, would you guys mind diving into that a little bit? Because I feel clueless, at least on that topic.
Yeah, sure. So, do you want to explain, Moose, or should I? I'll explain. So basically, we have the ethereal wheel, the elements right there, right? So you've got 6 elements, right?
Yeah.
You got fire, air, water, earth, ice, and levin. And then you have polarities for these elements, essentially. These polarities are typically referred to as astral or umbral. So back in the source, the way that we like interpreted this wheel, the way that we looked at it was that we thought that certain elements were more well, and this is true. Certain elements are more astrally aligned and certain elements are more umbrally aligned. But we misassociated what astral and umbral means in regards to like light and darkness. And so we had this idea that during astral eras, there's it's time of like great prosperity, etc., etc. Or right, I have that right. And then in umbral eras, it's times of like where things have like slowed down. There's not as much progress. There's bad things happening, right? So basically, essentially, what we figured out was that the way that light and darkness affect and interact with these elements is not quite exactly how we understood. So we were under the impression that darkness was responsible for what you would consider like stasis, right? Like the lack of progress, right? Like stifling things down and halting movement. And that light was responsible for like progress and change. But we found out in the first that was very much not the case, and that darkness was actually more associated with change and progress, and light and thereby astral, and light is more associated with the umbral, which is quite opposite to what we believed, and that's more associated with stasis and things not working like we thought that they did. So it's really like a huge moment of revelation where everyone is kind of going like, holy fuck, like at a fundamental physical level, the way that we understand the workings of the universe are not correct. And that's just like, I don't know if you can get a grander revelation than that in a lot of settings. So that was probably over explained or poorly explained in some areas, but I think we got there.
No, not at all. No, actually, I wanted to hear your take on it first. Because my take on it, as someone who's been playing since the beginning and has seen all of the retcons, was like, oh man, this is a brilliant series of retcons. But that's not how you're going to see it, as someone who is like a deep story enjoyer who's just digging into this storyline for the first time all in one go, like beginning to end, right? So
it's a little different.
This is going to feel like a big in-world moment, where to me it felt like a big out-of-world moment. So I wanted to hear you explain it first, because like that's what I think these shows are about, the perspective of someone who like is very, very experienced in tearing apart not this game, experiencing this for the first time and making meaning of it in a different way than I ever would. So like when I saw this as just like a brilliant pile of retcons, because in 1.0, light and darkness weren't even things. They weren't part of this game.
Yeah.
They tried to reinvent the wheel almost. Like, not to make too much of an elemental wheel pun out of it.
I was going to say, you're talking about the literal wheel.
Like, so there was like, it was like Aristotle meets Chinese alchemy. Like it was, you had all the 6 elements, but then everything, all 6 elements, all of nature, the wheel itself, everything had an astral and umbral kind of bent to it.
Oh, wow.
And when A Realm Reborn came out, they added light and darkness to it. And we were like, well, what?
What the fuck is that?
Yeah. Like you were saying, originally they had this philosophy behind it that light was associated with growth and energy and good things. And so anytime you were using like astral magics or something like that, it would pop up as white. And anytime you were using umbral magics, it would pop up as shadow, because that was the thing that slows things down and adds entropy. And, like that was what we knew for so long. But with darkness, there was clarity to astral from like clarification during an interview where Koji was like, they're not the same. Light and darkness are these primordial energies that aren't even on the same spectrum as the elements.
Yeah.
But because that was the only information we had, as we started coming towards Shadowbringers, I got very nervous, because you can't have a light calamity. It's not an element.
Right.
And that is why Urianger's PowerPoint is so brilliant. Because they had already revealed that these are primordial energies. They had already revealed they're not elemental energies. And they had already revealed that the 7th Umbral era was astral. So they needed to invert it if they wanted a light calamity, but didn't want 2 astral calamities in a row.
Right.
So to reveal that that just like in kind of the Japanese worldview, darkness is the energetic chaos of everything, and that's what really pulls things to the astral pole. Brilliant. Have an calamity that producing too much light pulled all the elements on the wheel at once towards the umbral pole in a way that you could have a calamity, and it was like everyone got what they wanted.
Yeah,
like,
and it was like one of the most
building.
terrifying sounding things.
Yeah,
like way worse than any other calamity. Like
Mhm.
we're gonna basically freeze everything ever. Enjoy it. And how they used Black Rose, dude, like tying the Garleans in with that, and how they used like Emet-Selch to like to pull it all in was fucking crazy. I really love that. Like once I understood how they were using the effects of Black Rose and like how it was going to tangentially link to the first, I was like, this is fucking metal. Like this is a little bit of a different level, I feel like, from what the Ascians have tried before.
Yeah. It was just like they didn't ruin setting. They got the light calamity they wanted. It was just everyone achieved their goal by working together on this. And I don't think a lot of people even understood why Urianger's PowerPoint was necessary. But at the same time, I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, and to get that in the game is fucking amazing, because you just don't get that in the game in other games, right? Like, wow, like you wouldn't get that type of in-depth explanation ever in that game. It just doesn't occur. And so I think it's especially cool for that it's kind of also unique, in my opinion, to this game and how it was delivered. And from a character that logistically it makes sense for them to be the one giving it to you in that way. And like, I don't know, just I think again it ties back into like fantastic game design of like how they were able to use time manipulation and his own personal research and all these different things to like have it make sense. And even as a new player, it made sense after a little bit. I honestly would say I struggled harder with like the Warrior of Light, Blessing of Light shit later on, more than I did with the elements, which yeah.
No, the way you explained it was actually probably better than some people I know who've played the game for a really long time, still struggling with the inversion. So no,
Yeah.
you've got it. And I think when you're describing the Blessing of Light thing, I think that was a very late game shift in how it works. I think they were trying to. I do consider that one to be a bit of a back end retcon a little bit. So I think it's natural to struggle with that one. Yeah. But we'll have plenty of time to talk about that in the Endwalker era.
Endwalker is going to be crazy.
I don't want to ramble too much about it.
Yeah.
Just can I just clarify one thing real quick? So just this little smidgen. So she was always calling. The sound was always there. It was just about whether or not the ability to hear it had been awakened within someone.
It was like an answering machine. That's how, like the way Elidibus described it. It was like an answering machine.
Okay.
That works for me. You know what? That's good enough.
All right.
That works. Okay.
So going past that too, we have Y'shtola's story, which is this is when she like officially was like blind, but only could see Aether at this point, right? Or did that happen a little bit beforehand? I can't
answering machine. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You can just
So I missed that one. No. Anyway, you were saying, I'm so sorry for interrupting you. I just got that.
It's okay. I was just gonna talk about Y'sh'tola now.
Oh please. Yeah, she's one of my favorites, dude.
I mean, I guess, maybe she was blind since Heaven's Ward, but I mean, I don't think it was like. Maybe they were clear on it. It's just it all got kind of mixed up with all this history kind of going together. But I mean, she sees Aether, right? And so her whole perception is that she sees your Aether, and if your Aether doesn't look right, she'll know something is off. And so she's in the world, and she becomes this whole. What's the word for it? Why am I blanking on it?
Like a.
What's the word?
I want to say savant.
Yes, Matolia.
Maybe not the right word.
Matolia is.
Oh, like a moniker.
Yeah, but the name.
She assumes that identity.
Pseudonym, alias.
Yeah. She becomes that, right? Into this world. Was it because she chose to do it, or because other people started to consider her that way? I'm trying to remember.
She went by that.
She just called herself that. She just like
She
said,
chose
yeah,
that.
that's
I'm pretty
me.
sure, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Alias.
It
And
doesn't.
then when she gets called out on it, it's so fucking funny. I love that. That's one of my favorite scenes when they're like, "Oh, Matoya, huh?"
So why did she do that again?
Go ahead, Moose.
I don't remember if it was ever explicitly said, but I know that like if I were to pontificate on it, I guess, I think that Y'sh'tola doesn't know what to do when she doesn't have a script to follow. I think that she's actually like very socially awkward and is using decorum a lot of the time. And I think you can see it in the game where like there's something emotional that's happening and someone needs support and she's not there when it's all words and emotions that like when Lise first she was Lise, everyone "Yeah, we knew, we're proud of you." Y'sh'tola just kind of pulled back to the tree line. But if you walked around and talked to everyone, she wouldn't leave. She stayed there and watched Lise. And I feel that like Y'sh'tola has never really known what to do when those moments are happening. And I think she was in a place where all the naming conventions were different and she felt vulnerable and she was just like, yeah, I'm Matoya.
The Night's Watch also doesn't. They don't use their real names.
So that was a great.
Kat
Yeah,
was
that's
saying.
right.
I forgot about that entirely, but apparently they don't speak their real name under the light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, my that was like my Shadowbringers deep lore is suffering because I was in grad school for that whole era.
Oh,
I was just in tears for that whole era. So I just, so I actually totally forgot that.
I've been over each of those things one time to like archive it. But yeah, no, you're right. There was like a whole lore reason why she had to use an alias. No, I was joking. I was joking about this while we were on the break there, but like there is so much in this game that like the amount that I've encoded directly into the brain meat versus what's like archived on my hard drive that I can search for easily when I need it. Like it's very random and sporadic, which is which, but it's like that for everyone.
Yeah.
But there's like a whole bunch of people watching. So someone has always encoded the thing I'm lacking. So it feels like me versus an entire crowd.
Yeah. The
relatable feeling when I do like theory crafting live on stream. That's a very relatable feeling. It can sometimes be a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
But
good catch. Yes, there was a direct lore thing that let her do that.
I would also like I would throw out there like as far as I don't know if it ever was like you said elaborated on, but as far as why she chose Matoya, you might also think just I mean it's not like Matoya was like super nice or anything, but she was kind of like mother to Y'shtola, you know, and I think that there's got to be a deep mutual respect that exists there, whether it doesn't actually come to the surface or not. You know, always. So you know, I think she probably it probably also kind of reminded her of home a little bit, you know, and kind of taking comfort in someone that she was so familiar with that, you know, maybe she would seek guidance in this type of situation from, and so
exactly
living as that person.
I think that in that moment, like this is one of the times that she's realizing that like for all the years she spent considering her kind of like a curmudgeonly old pain in the ass, she's actually like one of the strongest and most caring people that she knows, and she's more like her than she wants to admit.
Yeah.
So I think like if you need a new name and it just kind of slips out, oh, Matoya, there's that like subtle underlying assumption that she's strong and she would know what to do here, and I feel a little better having that with me.
I totally agree, and I think that fits super well with Y'shtola's like kind of reserved nature in general, as you were elaborating on before. Like she's one of those characters that more by her own volition, I feel like is more reserved, and it's really the subtle things like that I feel like kind of spill out some of the deeper emotional truths of her character.
Yeah.
And as far as go ahead. I was gonna say, as far as her blind thing goes, she went in the live stream. Okay, she came out. She had lost her normal sight. Okay, ready for this? But in order for her to utilize this ether sight, it does sap away at her, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is that that's
she's
true,
gonna
isn't
like
it?
die at
Ether
some point,
sight-
is what we think, right? She basically has some sort of sickness
This
that will kill her,
is-
right?
This is something that comes up in the fan community a lot, because Matoya said something that could be interpreted multiple ways. And what is the correct interpretation is something that everyone's been arguing over for a bit. So yeah, Y'sh'tola can't see at all, in the traditional sense. Like, her eyes are not responding to photo light. So she's reaching out and touching and sensing the ether using a different form of energy. And like, which one it is kind of unclear depending on which language you read. I thought it was anima, but we'll see. But Matoya warns her that using that life energy to see is going to have a cost. And
Right.
does
Does she leave that pretty ambiguous?
Yeah, so there's two primary ways that I see it interpreted in the fan base. The first is that she's using a finite resource she never gets back. She's eating her soul to see. She's doomed. She's dead, right?
Yeah.
And there's another side of it that I think I'm going to fall on more confidently each one, is what she's really saying is, like, much like it used to require using your life force to teleport. That was the lore for it, and it still does, but I mean, like, the lore doesn't come up as much anymore because we just pay with Gil now. But
that's
like,
what our soul's made out of anyway.
Teleporting requires using your life energy. So I think what Matoya might have been saying is, you are carrying on like normal. You are not recognizing your new limits. You are not admitting this burden to your friends. You are living the same life you were living before with a 50-pound weight on your back, and you are telling no one, and it's reckless. And that's what I think. I'm starting to think that's closer to what she was saying, because, like, there aren't many life energies in this game that you can't get back. Like, there's, your MP pool, which you can get by just chugging an elixir or having a good meal if you want. And then there's anima, which you need to rest and wait and take good care of yourself, but it does come back. So I think there's still a very open debate on whether it's like that brick's going to fall and die because she's burning through something she can't get back, or she's just being reckless, admitting she's draining more.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's kind of like the sun exploding, I think, to be honest with you. From my point of view, is that, we're not going to be alive when it actually happens. Because if they kill Y'sh'tola, they're going to lose so many people that play this game. Because there's such a huge... Even people who aren't into the story, they're into Y'sh'tola.
That's what I said about Sylvanas, too. And they didn't kill her off, did they? They fucking kept her.
Yeah.
They didn't do it. They made it seem like they were gonna, but they didn't do it. You can't kill off one of your big money makers. You just can't do it.
No.
That's why Thrall's not dead. That's why, that's why none of them motherfuckers is dead.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, yeah. I can see the spite from the World of Warcraft lore coming back to you.
No. There's really not a lot of spite. It's true. It's just true. Like, they just...
Yeah.
They don't kill big ticket characters ever, because I mean, it's a lot of people don't do that, except Game of Thrones. They kill everyone, but
they kind of stopped. Anyways, yeah, no, that's a whole nother topic.
Different topic.
But yeah, no, I think it was interesting to see her story, because they did give a death scare for that one, but it was such a light one. It was such a light.
When she falls in the pit,
yeah,
when she jumps in the pit, sacrifices herself. I'm like, she ain't dead. And then I didn't even notice it. But, you go back and you watch the clip when, like, the gust of air comes up from the fucking hole that she falls in, and it didn't even cross my mind what that might have been. Her tapping into the live stream in order to teleport, and because I'm pretty sure that's what happened the first time too. But Chad was like, "Hey, you didn't even notice it." And I was like, "Fuck," I'm too worried about the fact that she's not worried, but like focused on the fact that she's not going to die to notice that how she actually survives.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it was kind of interesting to see through her story too. Like, her main purpose throughout that was to go and investigate, like, ancient. What was it? Was it with the Asians that she was like
ancient Ronkin stuff?
Yeah, the
Ronkin
Ronkin
and the Raktika Greatwood.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, God, it's so hard to remember exactly where that society played into everything.
The-
I got
V's?
2 things.
Okay.
First, one, I just want to say sorry if I'm like going up and down. My connection is being affected by some kind of weather thing.
Mm,
It's all good.
it's good.
First off, I got your quote for the names.
Okay.
I ran a search through all the transcripts I saved just so I could get it for you. The Lights Blessed protect all that they can from the taint of like uttering things in the light.
Right.
So
Mhm.
you can never utter a name in the light of everlasting day. So you just never get to use the light anymore. But you can use another's name. So they, ancestors protect their children by them taking up those names, and in rare cases, disciples their masters.
There it is. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense then.
Okay. That's number 1.
That
What's
was number
2?
1. I forgot. What were you guys talking about?
We were talking about
we were just about to start talking about Ronka.
Yeah, Ronka.
Ronka. Okay, why?
And Raktika and the V's. And their warrior of light leader that they had.
Mm-hmm.
That was the assumption I made, was that I think they actually ended up saying that later on, that their empress or whoever, wasn't she like a warrior of light or some shit?
Like to like explore the tomb with that cool mini game with the cards.
Yeah. Yeah, Tiuna. Yeah, I really like the Ronkin stuff, and yeah, as someone said in chat, we were talking earlier about how the Ronkins were like, as soon as I walked in there, I was like, oh shit, dude, like this is very like phase 1 Alagon type stuff, And Moose made a what was it that you said about what it could have possibly have been?
Oh, again, another like half serious joke and conspiracy theory, but I like to see Ronka as like the plan for what Alog was going to be before Yoshida came in and they had to become like sci-fi spacefaring. Like the very, my favorite kind of magic, stone and light magic.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, their architecture was awesome. I love the puzzles there. Actually, it was like, I think I kind of like blew my chat's mind a little bit, because there's like a puzzle there where you have to like pick the right animal, and I just immediately knew which animal it was, and they're like, "How did you know that?" I'm like, because it's all over their architecture, like it's everywhere. So if they give me the chance, and then there's like little quotes for it, but it was just cool to feel like you really were going back and like solving a little like mystery in like a faraway land that somehow kind of showed you a potential, like earlier concept of what Alec could have been, like type of thing. And I think that was just what was the coolest thing for me, was really seeing like what felt like a really one-to-one, like this is this world's version of this. And then that's before I realized what the map that I was walking around on was and the places that I was visiting, obviously. But yeah, I really like the Ronkin section.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. I mean, like Chad was saying, it's kind of like an Indiana Jones kind of feeling, almost going in there and tomb raiding a little bit.
Yeah, don't you run from a boulder? Like,
I think.
I can't remember. I think you might. I don't know.
Yeah. But they also threw in like one of the most memorable side stories in the entire game with a worm. The Scree side story thing.
Oh yeah, the great Ronkin serpent.
Yeah.
They did such a great job pacing kind of the darkness and the silliness and the hope. Like they've done one thing that they've done is a really great job pacing.
Totally agree. And I would say definitely even continuing into Endwalker, like how they've fit in like the Arcasadara tribes, like such a great time to like expand in Thavnair and like bring more life to an area that already is so wonderful, but that's a different show.
Oh, I remembered what I was gonna say. Yeah, like wait, I felt like the deaths, the killing of characters took kind of a downturn in the Ishikawa era. And that's not necessarily a complaint or a compliment. It's just kind of an observation that like she seems much more deliberate about who to kill and bring back when. and that she seems nervous about wasting resources. So I haven't been afraid for many people's lives in a while, and Y'sh'tola was one of them. So like when she went into the live stream, I was very curious what the whole point of that was. Like, is it just a shallow, death flag to make you nervous again? And then cynically, in retrospect, it seems like they just needed something in the plot so you could see Emet-Selch do a good deed.
That, I think that's super true. Yeah, like he literally even says it to you. He's like, what do I have to do? Like, I saved her life. I pulled her out of the live stream. Like, I don't know how else to make you trust me. Like, what more benevolence can I show?
Yeah. Speaking of Emet-Selch, so I mean, like, how'd you feel? Like, it felt like we're just getting yanked out of the world where we went into this whole nother part of the story that I wasn't expecting. To me, when you see this giant city that he created underwater, and then you start going into like really deep Ascian lore and everything, it's just there was literally no way for me to guess that. I don't know if anyone else had some like, oh, I knew this was coming at some point in the story, but that okay, all right, Pyro.
I did guess that that it was down there and that we were gonna go there, and then thank goodness I actually guessed it, because when I got into the fucking area, I got a fog glitch and you could see the entire skyline. I could see the entire fucking city from where you first walk in.
Nice.
And I'm just like, oh, there's Amaraurot. It's over there. And chat's just freaking out. And I'm like, what? They're like, you're not supposed to see that. You're not supposed to see that yet. I'm like, oh, the city? I was like, I fucking figured it was down here, but
awesome.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
Yeah. And then I got, so that was, but like, yeah, I think like if you think about like Preach, have you seen Preach's reaction to it?
I haven't yet.
Oh, it's so good because he's like really into BioShock. And I felt the very same thing as soon as I walked in. I was like, it's fucking Rapture. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, Art Deco, baby.
Yeah, it's so cool. And his reaction was awesome. So that's probably like one of the most memorable sections of any video game that I've ever played. Amaraurot is a pretty magical piece of work, dude.
Yeah, I remember when when that expansion came out, and my wife used to play this game too, right? And so she was right at Amaraurot. At some point, she got past me on the story, and I walked into the room, and she's like, "You got to get out." Yeah. She's like, you're gonna get the fuck spoiled out of you. You need to get out of the room. And so I deleted everything I saw in my head when I went in there and went back to playing. And it was still really good to see it, even though I had a little bit of a glimpse of it, because the music was good, the atmosphere was good, just the oddness of seeing tall, like nondescript sort of, I guess, characters. It was really amazing to go through that. It felt different than what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting to see a giant city, but it was such a delightful. I had to keep going. As soon as I got to that point, I was like, I gotta keep figuring out what's happening down here. And you learn so much about this character that's been following you around this entire time, and you're like, "Fuck off, Emmett." Like, I don't know, maybe that was just me. I was like, why are you? I don't care. I know you could be here. It's like this creepy big brother thing. Like, he's always possibly there. And he shows up and does stuff. And
it grew on me. I think there's like a certain charm to it of like, this fucking guy. He really can come and go as he pleases whenever he wants. So I think it just like, for me, it kind of built on like, he really must have a reason that he's here. Like, this is the fact that he's willing to follow us around and actually interact with us speaks a lot about how important whatever it is that he's doing really is to him. And obviously, as you progress and you learn more about, his tempering and everything, you still see that kind of psychopathic tendencies that are brought because of that whole Zodiac shit. But yeah, they just, I've never had a villain like walk among me and become like, be so simultaneously kind of like annoying and snarky, but also so fucking interesting and like mysterious, and like, I wish you would just fucking tell me what you're talking about, because I know that you know some shit. And I think obviously how you get to interact with the Ascians, especially the Unsundered Ascians prior to all of this, is like, it's just so different. La Brea was, the mustache twirling Ascian, at least for now, dude. Oh my God, listen, Frosty, Pandemonium. Pandemonium's gonna get fucking crazy, dude. They're making some crazy references in the patch art and shit to like Hephaestus and to like Odin and Loki and like it's gonna be really cool, dude. It's gonna be really cool. But and then you have Elidibus and all that. So I think just getting to like actually know an Ascian is really just what I think takes it to a different level of like you almost never get this type of insight on your enemies because enemies are so easy to just make bloodthirsty psychopaths that you don't get this type of like interesting, like insightful, true motivation behind why they're really doing all this stuff. And I think as you start to recognize that Emmett might have actually felt some pain and had to deal with some pretty terrible things, like you start to kind of, I felt anyway that I started to like see him as less of a villain and more of like just a really unfortunate soul, you know, someone who definitely made some bad decisions, don't get me wrong, but by the time that this Zodiarch summoning had happened and they had all been tempered, like it was too late. You know, once that happens, like what are you gonna do? And so I try to see it almost, and I'm ranting at this point, but I try to see it almost kind of like I saw Sylvanas in WoW, and they didn't do it nearly as well with Sylvanas. I would have went at it with a different angle, but of like there was a pretty terrible thing that happened to me, and that's not an excuse, but it certainly has a lot to do with why I am the way that I am. And I think Emmett's situation and the trauma born from that like really spoke to a lot of players, and like seeing that within him really was something benevolent that just unfortunately got a little bit out of hand because they didn't really understand what they were getting themselves into.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Emet-Selch took me on a ride. Like I was all over the map with him throughout Shadowbringers. Like when he was first introduced, I, as usual, when it comes to retcon, had knee-jerk salty. Just salty, because for a while there were only 2 originals, and you've got to go make sense of what Nabriales said, and what do you mean they're, you know, like, which ones are from this world and not. Like, it felt like they had shifted something around just to avoid having to bring back La Habrea, because they'd already brought back everybody else. So, like, then you had the fact that Garlemald was like this human political gray in a story about like cosmic light and darkness, and then they were just like, oh no, just kidding, it's all Emet-Selch's clockwork toy chest. And I was like, no, he micromanaged the whole thing. So like I was very salty at first, but he was hanging out with Elidibus, and Elidibus trusted him implicitly, and I never trusted Elidibus. I called him a snake from day one. Every time someone mentioned him, I hated that guy. So like the fact that Emet-Selch was teaming up with him said to me that there's only so much trust I can extend to him. And so when he comes and he wants to join our team, I'm thinking, well, of course he does. Like every time they've made a plan, we've messed it up. So he's coming to the other side so that he has a very close eye on what we're doing, and he can adjust his plan as he needs to so we don't mess it up.
Now instead of us intervening on the plan, we become part of the plan.
We become part of the plan, right? Yep. So like I saw him as keeping an open door for us really deciding, you know what, I want to be beautiful and powerful and immortal. Screw the other shards. I want to be, you know, I think he left the door open for us to choose that. But I saw him as just machinations within machinations, and I turned out to be wrong on part of that, because Yoshida walked us through some of it in one of the interviews, and while the bar was very, very high, impossibly high, Emet-Selch did want to be proven wrong. He did want to reevaluate humanity, but between his tempering and the fact that we weren't really a Zem, it just couldn't happen. We couldn't circumvent it. And for us to not be a Zem truly broke his heart. And I was wrong to not see that part coming. But I mean, in the end, he really was wheels within wheels within wheels. And I did get the one thing I expected out of him, which was that he was going to lay out his case for what he was doing. It was going to be relatable and tragic, and ultimately a very unpersuasive argument for why we should give up and die.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I'm not convinced quite yet, so you might have to die, Emmett.
It's weird to be able to sympathize with someone who wants to destroy everything, right?
It does feel kind of weird. You're like, I feel like I shouldn't really be feeling kind of bad for you, but I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I feel like really makes a good villain. I mean, if it's someone that, you don't have to think that what the villain's doing is right, but if you can bridge some type of emotional, gap there, then I think that's what can really help you build really solid, convincing, enjoyable villains like Emmett, and a character that will probably be remembered by more people as a friend than a villain, which is pretty fucking remarkable, considering.
Sorry.
No, that was it.
I was just going to say, just to make sure this is my perception and that it makes sense, is that this guy basically, he dropped this big glass pot or whatever that he loves so much. He's like, man, I just want this thing to go back together. And it's just him constantly trying to put it back together and then having to deal with the fact that something is stopping him from doing it constantly. And it being broken in shards is worthless to him. He wants to get gold, and meld it together and get it back to its whole state and get back his life. But it's just out of reach and he just can never do it. And so to him, I think he mentioned this too. We're nothing. We're not something that matters, right? We are broken pieces he needs to put back together to get rid of us. To get rid of us and bring back what was actually there.
I compare him. Oh, do you want to go first, Pharaoh?
I could try to make it quick, but
ramble.
I was just gonna say, I think maybe a little bit of that is like a little bit of denial too, though, because there's no denying Emmett saw what he saw towards the end. He knew, with his former relationship with Azem, like, I think there's a little bit of like denial that probably just has to exist in there, as far as like, even if I see that you're a fragment of someone that I once knew, like I don't know that I can I don't know I can word it very well, so you can go ahead, Moose.
I compared him to the protagonist of a separate video game. That's how I see him. Like, Emet-Selch is one of my two favorite villains. Who you would be under different circumstances in competition for mutually exclusive resources. That from another perspective, you are the hero of the game. So I want you to think about how many games you've played or movies you've seen or stories you've heard where the proper timeline has been broken and you're the only one who really knows, and you're the one who has to set things right. And it gives you the opportunity to travel through different times and see different things. And there's like an alternative history. But in the end, the goal is to get back to the right timeline, to put things back on their proper course. How many times have you ever thought, when you were the hero of that story, what about the people who are thriving under these conditions? What about all of the people who are living full, wonderful lives that they don't want to lose in this world that you're about to undo? So I think it's very easy to see Emet-Selch as exactly who the Warrior of Light would be under different circumstances, because we tell stories like that all the time.
Yeah.
And but in this game, the world that we know and love and fight for is the one he wants to destroy. So it can't happen.
Right.
Right.
So that's where I was stuck, is that I could see it, but it's not going to happen. And I think the one brilliant part of this was that it's so consistent with what we learned in Endwalker, that Emet-Selch was basically saying, I've been crushed by grief and sorrow for 12,000 years, longer than anyone should have to, and I don't have to accept that. I don't have to accept sorrow. We'll deny this. We're going to get it all back. We're going to get paradise back. I don't have to accept sorrow. And I think that just that rhymed so well with the revelations we got later, and still let me see him as kind of that protagonist of a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and you see it kind of come to life in a different sense, literally with Elidibus, like literally becoming the Warrior of Light incarnate. Yes. I mean, it doesn't get That's one of my favorites, man. Like that's one of my favorite fights. I love the story behind that. And man, that just that's I would say the example of like that kind of opened it up to me as like if you can become this, like anyone can become this type of thing. That was really, really fucking cool. I really liked Warrior of Light.
Yeah.
For all I joke about her hesitancy to kill people, I have lost bet after bet after bet to Ishikawa when it comes to characters and how things are going to play out. And loving Elidibus was one of those. I didn't think anyone could ever get me to love Elidibus, and I love the character he became in the end.
Yeah.
That moment where you realize that he was just this idealistic kid who really thought he was doing the right thing, and that his one job was to be impartial and guide his people on the right path. And by being kind of naive, he set himself up to lose his impartiality and become rigidly loyal to one inflexible plan that was never going to work.
Yeah.
That's like the tragedy of Elidibus is just, it's so good.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say we're at 2 hours, but I don't know how much more time you have, Pyro Moose. But
not too much more. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been
I'll
a little
make
while.
time for you guys. So
that's
I understand
fair.
other people like you got schedules.
Yeah.
Like lives.
So I figured, and apparently the ad break already ran, so I'm just going to leave it alone for right now. We can start wrapping stuff up. But as we're kind of getting to the closing bits of this, I mean, we hit a lot of points. There's still a lot with Shadowbringers to talk about.
We didn't even talk about like Cardinal Sins or role quests. We didn't talk about Ardbert or Seto.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about Ardbert. Fuck.
I mean, we could. That's why I wanted to give us a little bit of room here, just in the last bits. Anything that was like really vital that you want to just dive into, that we do a little bit of a small dive into it. And is Ardbert one of those that you want to dive into?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the slow realization that like the guy that they've set up as this kind of like enemy of you, this kind of like dark reflection from another world, but they're not really you. They're just calling themselves this, but he's actually fucking you. Like that was I don't know, dude. That's some of the greatest storytelling, in my opinion. Like initially, when the Warriors of Darkness were introduced, they were kind of whack. But obviously, how they set them up at the end of Heaven's Ward made it seem like they were going to have some relevance. And I totally agree with like what Moose was saying earlier, as far as like they definitely made me feel like they were just going to take Minfilia and like that was going to be that, and we weren't really gonna. Good luck, guys. And whatever happens, we're going to see the consequence here. So then when we actually got to go there and start to interact and see like the, like the first night that you're in the Crystarium, I'm like in the inn and you get the vision thing and I see Ardbert and I'm like, oh fuck, dude. I'm like, oh fuck, this is crazy. And after the cutscene ends, I look at my chat. I'm like, chat, I have a feeling that I'm like soul linked to Ardbert right now. Like something's going on here. And then like progressing through the expansion and finding out like really what that link was. And like, I don't know. I just it was such a cool phenomenon for me to feel like I was looking at the hero that I am, that just I don't know how to describe it. It's like that impending potential failure that could loom just around the corner for you because you're the same, like in a sense, like and so it kind of, I don't know, it made me, I just felt very connected to him as a character because I feel like more than almost any other character, it just felt like you were just looking at yourself, and you really, I guess, in a sense, were with the whole Azem shard thing. But the way that they brought that in, and dude, I can't wait to talk about Endwalker. Fuck, fuck, dude.
We'll do it. We'll do it.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna have to.
So, I mean, Ardbert. It's funny because when he first was introduced, it's like, well, this is the guy that's in every trailer, and then it starts to add up and everything else, and you see him in the game. He's such a big part of the game. I mean, in the end, he's part of you technically, right? He gets absorbed into you, and he's with you in a way. Moose, do you want to?
That part gave me a lot of headaches at first, because remember, like they didn't have any long-term plan to use the Warriors of Darkness for this like 5.0 story. It was a really great like transition story in the 3.4 era. So when they showed up in the 3.4 era, like I feel like the dev team was like, yeah, we can like do an homage to the trailer people to take a shortcut and show them like, yeah, these are just random adventurers from the other world. They could be any of you. But the fact that they looked so much like the trailer party led to a lot of like mistaken identities and conspiracy theories. So it was a headache for me at first. And I'm like trying to highlight like, no, the opening cutscene did not have Ardbert in it. Like when we are seeing these trailers, you're seeing Derplander meet Darklander. Like these are two separate landers.
And neither of them are moonlanders.
Yeah.
And he's like, the one in the trailer is kind of you, but kind of not, but kind of. So like the fact that it was a shard of you, I think it helped me accept it a little more, because at first it felt like a really cool homage that went kind of sideways as people didn't know how to interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then when I really loved their story, and I really loved how he went back to his world, and I really loved how they were seeing villains as villains. But it took I feel like I was on a journey with Ardbert.
Yeah.
Because I, like him, didn't understand why the hell he was still there. And
that's a good point.
It was awkward and weird to me at first. Like they just really needed someone to monologue at me sometimes. And I didn't get it. Like the first few times that I went back to the inn room and I'm trying to sleep and he's coming in like Jonathan Frakes, like just ever gone mountain biking? Grow up. What's the right tip? Like I'm just like, what are you doing, dude? Go away. But it was still like great insight to the past. But I feel like we discovered that answer of why he was there together and joined forces to save his world, and that felt great in the end. Like it all landed so good in the end.
Yeah.
Yes. The final cutscenes there where he hands down his axe to you is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I was so cynical for a moment because like when that scene started, it's so anime. It is so peak JRPG. And like I'm watching them get hurt but not die, and I'm like, okay. And that adult, jaded, cynical person that I've become watched the beginning of that cutscene. And then somehow, as the Ardbert thing came together and like the Warrior of Light collapsed and Ryne didn't make it to them in time and it all started unraveling. And then the theme song hits.
Dude.
And all of that cynical adult just melted away.
Yep.
This child jumped off the couch like, yeah! Whoa! It was such a powerful moment. So I'm so glad Ardbert was there.
Yeah. Oh, dude. It's something that I'll hear in my head for as long as I play the game. Like, I just remember like my reaction, just like, yeah, let's fucking go. Like, it was that was probably one of the most satisfying, and that's honestly one of the coolest things I think about this game as far as like their willingness to actually close storylines and bring things to a fucking end. You know, I think that there's a lot of storyline opportunities that are just left open in other, like in WoW. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's really I love that they're able to do those types of things, and I think it makes things feel less cheap and makes it feel a lot more meaningful in the long run of like we will have memories of things that we did with Ardbert forever, but we also know that he's not going to come back. And I feel like kind of having that finality in certain ways in this game is really nice because it allows you to actually like feel the feelings and then like process it and like grow from it emotionally instead of feeling later like you got like it was cheap or that you got cheated out of the truth. Yeah. So Ardbert, I felt like was really one of those like big mainline stories that took advantage of getting rid of someone in an incredibly meaningful way. So
one other thing that I feel like we'd be horrible not to just do a brief mention on, even though he didn't end up being like the main villain, he was the main villain going into was Vauthry, right? And so we haven't touched Vauthry at all because when I think about Shadowbringers, I know he exists and I know he was a part of the story, but he was never something that really mattered that much to me. It was just an angry child you had to deal with at some point in the story. Is how I felt. And I mean, they went into his backstory and everything, but Emet-Selch is so much more important than Vauthry.
Yeah, I think Vauthry definitely filled a very nice gap of like the villain that makes you feel disgusted. Like Emmett's the villain that makes you feel empathy and kind of feel that sorrow. Vauthry just made me feel disgusted and just like this is really like the worst of what it can get to. And when I first got the cutscene with him, I noticed that little thing on his chest, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And my chat's just spamming smiles because, of course, he ends up being like the Sin Eater or whatever, like whatever the fuck. But he was like, he was just that representation of like those vices and like common sins that you think of that you like gluttony and stuff. He's just like that nice raw, just dark fucking example of it.
Thing to hate.
What's that?
Just the thing to hate. It's the thing to be like 100% just hate and be okay hating.
Like, there's just no reason for him to be around. That guy just needs to die.
Yeah.
I think we can all unanimously agree on that one.
Yeah. Moose, any thoughts on that before we close up? Or any thoughts at all? I guess this is a good point. Any thoughts at all about anything else, if not that?
On anything else, if not that? I think I can save a lot of it for the Endwalker one, because like I think anything else I would explore kind of has to do with where the story went that I didn't expect, but we can use that as the lead into Endwalker, I think. Vauthry, I didn't have too many deep thoughts on. Like you said, he seemed like a guy that we were just supposed to hate. And it was very interesting to see, like, to use him to get kind of like a world building thing going, because he was such an important part of what society could be like. But at the same time, he was Emet-Selch's like plan, one of the plans that we made go awry. Yeah. So it was an interesting like Rubik's Cube side in the puzzle, but I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about him too deep.
One other thing I would say is that regarding him, I did think it was kind of interesting to get that contrast. And someone said in the chat, the meme of like, "Oh no, he's hot" type thing, right? When he transforms in the Innocence fight. But it also, like, I specifically love that because that like opened up of like the understanding for me of like, what does this light really represent? Like when it's taking these forms, like what is innocence? Like this is innocence in the standard of the light. Like that's pretty fucked up type of thing, right? And it just contrasted, like it contrasted it, but it didn't. It was like almost like Vauthry could show you like that disgusting truth beneath like that shimmering beauty that you see on the outside. That is the light. And I felt like that interaction, that storyline with him really illustrated that more than anything else for me.
I think the one thing I took away from it was that he was so in line with the theme of excess, that really what this story was about is that too much of anything is bad, that too much of light is just as bad as too much of darkness. And that's really what we were exploring, was that just because you're the warrior of light doesn't mean that infinite everlasting light is a good thing.
Doesn't mean warrior of good.
There's a perspective to this story. Yeah. So I think Vauthry for me was like that symbol of excess and what happens when we give in to excess without realizing it, by thinking we're the good guys. So like someone was saying, like innocence kind of is how he sees himself, because he doesn't recognize that excess.
And they also,
I think,
someone also said, it's these little things that I wouldn't even remember. They also said wasn't he born a sin eater, so he never technically committed a sin? Some shit like that.
Committed a sin?
That's what people said in chat. They said he's innocent. Like, he was born a sin eater, so he's never. I don't think that's really how it works.
I mean, he was like the soul of a light warden was merged into him by
as a baby
when he was like
inside
gestation period. Yeah,
right. It's not like he was conceived as a terrible. Well, he was technically. What is conception? I guess. Anyway. Technically, he was a normal baby that then got kind of,
We We could definitely spin
God.
some philosophy on it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway.
No, yeah. So I mean, I think we went over a good bit about Shadowbringers, and I know it's a little bit different because we're going back like far back at this point. But it was nice. It was nice to go back and reflect on what we all experienced, and because it was again one of the best expansions up until Endwalker. I guess there is debate on all that too.
I didn't think they could top it.
Yeah. So that is.
So you're in the Endwalkers better than Shadowbringers camp?
I see them as complementary, where I don't want to put them in competition, because I see Shadowbringers as the culmination of the story as we thought we knew it.
Yeah.
I see it because in that era you have the best Ascian fights you're ever going to get. Emet-Selch is easily the best antagonist that the Ascians could put forward. It was the culmination of the Ascian plan. I consider the Elidibus fight to be our Zodiark fight, because Elidibus had withdrawn himself from Zodiark, so that was really truly the heart of Zodiark.
Much the core of it, yeah.
Yeah,
At that point, that's everything.
I see Elidibus as how Zodiark would have seen himself if we had gone down that road. So I see all of that as this really incredible culmination of the story as we expected it.
Yeah.
And then to the complement of that, I see Endwalker as the culmination of the saga of the series of expansions through the lens of the traditional JRPG. It was just a distilled, crystallized, vaporized, snorted JRPG, all of the best and worst things about Final Fantasy and JRPG history in one, and is I just see it as a totally different thing, and I don't want to put them in competition.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I think almost one can't really be quite as appreciable without the other, and especially like you're saying in hindsight. Yeah, I can't wait to talk Endwalker, dude. I can't fucking wait, dude. I know I keep saying that, and that's not to take away from Shadowbringers today, because I love Shadowbringers, but I want to talk about this fucking 6.2 art with you so bad, Moose. Have you seen it? Have you looked at it, right? The La Brea art? Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I have been begging for this, because this is, even on topic for Shadowbringers, I believe that what has happened, by bringing a third original into the mix, so now you've got La Brea, Elidibus, and Emet-Selch, and then having Emet-Selch and Elidibus both get these huge, badass arcs where you see deep into their personality, and they're so powerful, and everything's on the line.
Meanwhile, the other one you get La Brea.
La Brea has been the victim of some serious villain decay, and it's time to fix it.
Totally agree, dude. Oh, I can't wait.
So, that being said, could we even condense Endwalker into a 2-hour show?
We would need a whole show about Pandemonium and Aglaia alone.
So maybe we do Endwalker, and then after Endwalker.
No, we're gonna talk about it in Endwalker.
Okay, that's fine.
Because by then too, we're gonna be, depending on when that is, right? The next Abyssos is gonna be out. Second Wing of Aglaia is probably gonna be out.
Yeah. That's going to be early.
Maybe we should wait then until we're done.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could be a year from now, though.
We'll figure it out. We're going to have it soon. We'll have a show soon. We'll have a show. We'll do in the next month or two.
Frosty, do you remember much about the Ultima weapon?
I feel pretty.
Do you remember what powered the Ultima weapon? What was inside of it? Do you recall that thing?
No, I can't. Off the top of my head, I can't recall it. Okay.
If you end up finding yourself some free time, I know you're busy, man. I understand. You should go and do that again.
Well, I remember the storyline with what's his face, kids and everything, and it was all their assets. Yeah, Gaius. Yeah. So I don't know how much that's relating to that. I know the primals get all sucked up into Ultima and everything.
They do. Yeah. But there's something inside of Ultima that's really
Why did he suck up all the primals?
Yeah.
Because he's evil.
Primals had a shit ton of ether because he was trying to power up something. I'm gonna just leave this. It's called the Heart of Sabik.
Okay, that
Sign
I
up.
don't know anything about that, so that's going to be something for me to.
I can't wait till you
Yeah.
can catch up on the raids, dude. They're so
Yeah,
hype right now, Frosty.
I will.
It'll be hilarious if this is what finally closes the Hardest of Beak story.
Dude,
I
I
would
so
laugh
hope it
so
does,
hard.
dude.
I
I
would
hope
laugh
it does.
so hard.
Can we please
I-
just be over it?
I expected them to just be like, "Oh yeah, that was just Zodiac's shard from the 13th. Don't worry about it." Like,
Oh my god! All right.
it was supposed to come up in 3.0 and it didn't. It got moved out of the story.
I feel like I want to keep going with all this stuff, but I feel like if I don't, we're going to end up in another hour from now.
That is right. That is correct.
But yeah, no, absolutely, we'll do this again. Thank you everybody for coming back for this. This was fantastic. I love having you guys on. It is a magical moment for me every single time because you're both so passionate about the story, and seeing that level of conversation with two people very passionate and deep into the lore is just amazing. And then we have the old jaded veteran of lore, and then we have the new, I guess, I don't know, bright-eyed,
I guess.
Yeah, bright-eyed.
You can make me sound more cynical. It's okay.
Yeah.
Don't be offended. He can be the happy one.
Oh, the happy and the angry one. Sure, we could do that. No.
It's like Eeyore, and I'm like,
No, that's that's why I love these shows, actually, because I think your experience or your perspective as someone who's like had so much experience in story analysis, but got to become an expert on this particular story all at once. Like, no years of knowing things that got retconned, no 3-month, wait between patches for everything to mutate, no all those debates about what could be coming, you got to just like become an expert on this story in real time at your pace, in your way, with your skills. And that's a perspective that not many people are going to have. So I love these conversations.
That's awesome. Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it can be a little bit overwhelming and hard to remember. That's like the worst part about it, is like, because it is all together. But it's definitely been like the craziest like narrative ride of anything like that I've ever experienced. So this is one of my favorite things to like come back and check in and do, because I mean, I don't do it with anyone else, like, so and to be able to have you come on, Moose, and like kind of have you there to like be able to fact check and also give your perspectives and everything is super awesome. And like I always say, you guys were two of the first people that wanted to interact with me when I came into the community, and we did that a long time ago, and it was really fun, and you guys have always been super welcoming and really helped make me feel like a part of the community. So,
well, I mean,
you
absolutely are. Now you are
at this point. I must be.
We're glad you stayed.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
That being said, we'll figure out and schedule all the stuff when it's optimal and best to do the next show, but we will make another one here. Between then and now, Pyro, you're going to be doing tons of stuff, I'm sure, with the game, with Final Fantasy XIV. If people wanted to find you, where can they find you? And if you have any last shouts or anything, please, go ahead and do those too.
Yeah, so I stream on Twitch over at twitch.tv/RichWCampbell. You can. I don't stream any Final Fantasy though, so sorry about that. You can find my YouTube. It's youtube.com/Pyromancer, and my Twitch is twitch.tv/Pyromancer. You put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I stream Final Fantasy. I stream like anywhere from like 3 to 5 days a week right now. We actually have like a little bit of like a fundraiser going on my stream right now. I don't know if you're aware. My wife recently had to have an emergency surgery. And so we do actually have a fund up on my channel if anyone is interested in helping with that. We don't have any insurance, and it was quite a stay in the hospital as well. If you'd like to learn more about that, it's on a VOD from a few days ago, and there's also a description in there. So if anyone's interested in helping with that, we would really, really appreciate it. And there's already been so much support. I really can't say thank you enough. And she would like to say thank you at some point as well. So other than that, man, like that's just the most important thing to me right now. If you guys want to come and catch a stream, I'd really appreciate it. But otherwise, my YouTube's kind of dead until I decide to nut up and actually make fucking videos And so it looks like some people are shelling out some love for you there.
Yeah, holy
Frosty.
fuck.
There you go, dude.
You doubled my sub numbers. That's amazing. Holy shit. Thanks, Sultan. That was definitely unexpected.
There you go, dude.
Holy
Hell
shit.
yeah.
Do I have a piece of paper stuck in my beard? Hold on.
You do.
I've been like ripping apart this piece of
Ripping it?
straw paper for like, I don't know, 2 hours. It's just something to fiddle with while we're talking. Anyways, yeah, holy shit. Thanks for that. Just as we're ending the show too. But yeah, please check out Pyromancer, and yeah, absolutely throw love and support his way. He's such an amazing content creator for the Final Fantasy XIV community that has been here for. It feels like now you're just here. Like it wasn't like you're new. You're not new to the community anymore. You're here. You're part of it. So
yeah, at this point it's been over a year. So I said I was gonna play this game and I wasn't
you
going
did it.
anywhere. So here we are.
That being said, too, please, Moose, if you could tell everybody who you are and any kind of shout outs or anything else you want to say before we wrap up the show. I mean, not who you are, but where they can find you. Sorry.
Who I am. Right now, I think the best places to find me are just any of the Discord servers that you can find me in, anywhere with a lore channel, at Anonymoose XIV on Twitter. Onwill ANWYLL on Twitch. The current state of affairs is that I stream when there's like new story content, and I would like to do more, but that's all I can commit to right now. And a lot of the conversations that I'm having are kind of in smaller spheres right now, because after Endwalker, a lot of the public discussion took a very inflammatory turn in a lot of circles. It's been a lot of the open areas got a little unpleasant. So I walked that back a bit, but you can still find me on all of the places that I am.
If there's lore somewhere in the community, whether there's a Discord, a forum, somewhere else, Moose is probably there in some way.
Open spaces right now. Hopefully, again, one day, open spaces again.
Okay.
Are you able to? Do you play much outside of stream? Are you able to?
I am able to. It's increasing now. Actually, work was pretty wild for a little bit, and I'm just getting stable with all of that now. So I'm hoping to slowly branch out again. Like last time we did this, I was like, yeah, I really hope it settles down. But it took a little longer than that, and now it's just getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Since we have DC travel now, I just have to find you and add you. That's why I'm asking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And like I can be on at a moment's notice. I'm not on because I'm not here. I've triaged the most important things to do.
Yeah. Good
so
idea.
like if the most important thing to do is be online and do something in game, I'll be there.
Cool.
Yeah. Like that's kind of my life too, is triage. It's literally everything right now. It's like ultimate raids are amazing, but that has gone outside the range of what I have the ability to do right now, especially with that most recent one. Holy fuck.
Yeah, Dragon Song's nuts. Moose, you have a YouTube, right?
Yeah, I just saw Pash mentioning that. Yeah, what happened was I moved all of my like people just like they were like, you should play it live. So I did, and I moved all the video on demand over to YouTube. Nice. And then I got like halfway through doing all the descriptions and titles and thumbnails and stuff, and then just had to do other stuff, and it just kept falling behind. And a friend of mine, Rockel, has graciously agreed to just do the rest of the labeling and post them. So those are finally going up.
Hell yeah, let's go. New content.
So if you want to, I'd post that channel. What's the channel? Do you have a channel name for it? Like, is it just simple? Is there like a crazy amount of symbols or whatever else?
I think the last time I looked at it was a crazy amount of symbols.
Well, if you want to put it in chat, I have you as mod, so you can do it. Yeah. And I'll make it easier while we're kind of wrapping up here. Again, you guys are fantastic. It means a lot that you came on and did this show after such a long time. And I look forward to the future shows that we can do as well. There is so much cool stuff happening within the Final Fantasy XIV community. We have another patch coming up that's going to be a huge patch with lots of different things for lots of different people who play Final Fantasy XIV to experience. Just to let you guys know, next weekend we won't have a MogTalk. It will be a weekend off that we will probably declare planning time for and try to get the next ones going. such as getting the next one of these shows going. So have a little bit of a rest, a break that weekend. I will say that we are still planning to do coverage on the World Race, which will happen when the patch comes out. Right at that time, we're planning for a 48-hour stream. So it's going to be a pretty huge production that we're putting a lot into. So please check out. We haven't decided on a charity, but we'll be raising money for a charity as well. I think in the last 2 events that we did, we raised somewhere between $25,000 to $30,000 for separate charities, and it was amazing to get the support from the community for that. That's awesome. But that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I will say there is an event that's happening. There's the LunarCon that's going on for one, right? And then there's also
a small thing.
It's just a small thing. There's also the Wolf's League that's happening, the PvP event, because people like PvP in Final Fantasy 14 now. So we have that going on. I am going to do some shoutcast commentary on that tonight. I don't know if he's live, but I'm going to raid the channel anyways. Assume that he is. Well, I'll check. I'm going to run the credits, and during the credits, I'll check and see if the channel's live. If it is, we'll send you guys over there. Again, thank you everybody for watching. This has been a fantastic show. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Remember, be good, keep cool, and we're all going to wave and say bye. Bye, guys.
Bye. Get the fuck out of here.
Perfect. That's right before I hit the transition screen.